Welcome back. It's Tim Harris, and this is our favorite podcast of the week. This is our free form, anything goes. We talk about whatever the heck we want to focus on Friday. Now, I do want to give you guys a warning. If you're looking for our normal jib jab of real estate coaching and training, you can listen to all the other thousands of podcasts and videos we have. We've done over something like 7,000 or 8,000 podcasts that are truly focused on real estate coaching and training. But we gave ourselves a little gift and are doing Friday shows that are going to be a little bit zany, a little bit unusual on the weird topics that Julie and I find interesting. You know, the types of things that you might share between two friends, or in our cases, two spouses and two friends, Instagram posts, things that are just sort of like caused us to, take a little break from the day and
Fun
appreciate.
Friday.
Fun
And of
Friday.
course, real estate does tend to slip in here and there. So I'm sure we'll
Yeah.
talk a little bit
So
of real estate. But in the unlikely event that this is your first Tim and Julie Harris podcast,
that was my warning.
that's your warning, is that the regular shows Monday through Thursday are highly real estate focused. So bear
Yes.
with us. Yeah.
Exactly. Bear with us. And yeah, there you go. I think we've put out the notices in the warning.
Disclaimers and disclosures. Yeah.
Yep. All right. There you go. All right. Use as prescribed. And yeah, there you go. All right. So Julie, let's start out and this is our Friday, our fun Friday feel good vibes, which Julie put together. And I have not intentionally looked at her notes yet because she always comes up with some fun stuff. But before we get to that, I'll tee you up for the statistics. Julie and I have been really watching some of the, I'd say, incongruent information coming out from the various housing, reporting agencies as far as what the heck is going on with home sales. And there was a report that came out a week ago that basically said that housing looks like it's trending to be the worst year in like 5 years, like the worst year, flipping even worse than the worst year, which was supposedly the last year.
Cats and dogs living together, doom and gloom, the sky is falling, whatever you want to throw into that headline.
Exactly. And they were saying that like last year was a low watermark and it had been the worst home sales year since I don't even remember all the crap. You guys remember that. Well, now someone came out last week and they said this year is going to be worse than last year. But Julie and I aren't seeing that from a lot of our coaching clients. Now, let me just frame this for you. So in our EXP Realty group, we have over 3,300 agents. And so we have agents virtually in every country and in several different countries. I'm sorry, every state in several different countries. So we're able to actually see the trends in housing, not to a huge level, but 3,300 agents in all these different states does give you a good indication of what direction the market's going. And what we've been seeing are indeed for the last 60 days fewer closings, but now we're seeing that trend change. And now you have our EXP Realty group, and then you have our coaching group. And our coaching group is thousands of people as well. And we do some reporting with them as well, especially our elite clients. And we're seeing the same thing. We're seeing more expireds and absolutely seeing a lot of markets, more days in the market, but we're starting to see a shift happen. And this is in alignment with what Julie and I were predicting, that there was going to be a real housing turnaround. And we're seeing early indications of that happening. And we can talk forever about why we know this is the beginning of a 25-year housing boom. But if you want to know that information, just frankly, find our past podcasts, or you can go to Google and just put in the keywords, make housing great again. That's a phrase that we obviously liberated from the president. But also we titled a few past podcasts with that name. So if you want to listen to or read all the reasons why we feel this is the beginning stages of a 25-year housing boom, just go and Google make housing great again. You'll find all the reports. Long story short, we're now seeing really, I think, what one would only call incredibly good information. So Julie, there's your tee up.
Yes, well, and certainly boots on the ground from our coaching clients. We both came off of a whole bunch of coaching calls this week, and it's not just a higher volume of sales. It is, I wouldn't say that we're having faster, like you still have 30 to 60 days on the market, but that's not the end of the world. Things are still selling. I've noticed that some of the more unusual, like mixed use commercial land, all of this stuff is starting to move now. And even though we do have longer days on the market and maybe not 20 different offers, stuff is still selling. I would say it's got to be 95% of our coaching clients are on track or ahead. Okay, so let's talk about mortgages, right? So mortgage application data is up mortgage applications are up 10% month over month. And I think that's the second or third week in a row it's been like that since rates started to inch down. When we closed out this week, as of today, because this is our Friday show, rates were right around 6.7%. So what does this tell you? It means that people maybe have reached a breaking point where they're no longer waiting for rates to be five something or even low, sixes, that a quarter point less is maybe enough to pull the trigger on that mortgage application and at least get it done. You can always, of course, refinance. You can watch your rates. But the fact that it's up 10%, that's a lot. I don't know how many million people that is, but it's a lot. And we're certainly seeing it. I would say personally, I see this in the lead follow-up of our private coaching clients. It's not just, the typical follow-up, they're going to do something someday. It's, yeah, let's set that appointment. Let's go take a look at houses. Let's have that listing appointment. Let's strategize if I'm a buyer and a seller. So that's been a significant shift. It seemed like we were in a hovering pattern for a long time. I think you'll agree with that, with trying to get the gears moving. But now it seems like that's working. And maybe that's because we're midsummer and people are looking at school going back. Whatever the reason is, I think a quarter point lower in interest rates are good.
But this is typically a slower time of year, and not all markets, but some markets like Arizona increases towards the end of the year because, snowbirds and whatnot.
Yep, that's
Florida
right.
the same way. But for the most part, if you look at the bell curve of home sales that happen in the United States every year, we're definitely at what would be typically a slower time because vacations and all the rest of the things that people get distracted by. Moral of the story is it seems like we're carrying more momentum into the second half of the year than we have if you compare, say, for example, June, July of the previous 5 years. You haven't seen this type of data being essentially churned out that would show that the housing market is increasing. Matter of fact, just the opposite has happened. If you guys have been in the market for any amount of time, it is really funny. The reports for housing always started the year with, this is going to be all blah, 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 blah. Everything's going to be amazing. And then mid-year, it's like, didn't happen. So I guess we're going to hold off till next year. Now it's exact opposite seems to be happening. So be encouraged. And I'll tell you, Julie, I know you have a point you want to make real quick, but when I'm telling all of my elite coaching clients, I know you're doing the same thing, Jules, is they have to do what is the exact opposite of what everyone else is doing. What everyone else is doing is maybe they're just blaming the market. They're blaming interest rates. They're not putting
Waiting
down
for something. They're waiting
exactly.
for rates to be even better. They're waiting for houses to sell themselves again. They're waiting for clients to call them from their drip system.
Exactly. And what we're
Exhausting.
telling people to do, and this is something you guys should all be considering, is absolutely be focusing on building your listing inventory because what appears to be happening is I think what's going to happen quickly in less than, say, 60 days, return and interest rates will fall. When you guys see interest rates fall, especially if they fall anywhere close to 5%, you're going to see a absolute unbelievable, unprecedented amount of homes sell. And the inventory will sell off really, really fast because a lot of people are sitting on the sidelines. And it's not just a function of waiting for interest rates to fall, though ultimately that's what it is. What they're doing is they're waiting for essentially the payment on the house that they want to buy to be affordable. So don't think that homes being overpriced are the issue. Ultimately, what it has to do and what is causing this consternation in the market are interest rates being too high. When interest rates fall and payments become affordable, you're going to see, again, a massive sell-off. So what are we telling everyone to do? Take listings. Focus on all the expireds. There are so many expireds happening in virtually every market in the United States right now. That's really the bottom line. All my personal elite clients, I know Julie's doing the same.
Yep.
Whatever your normal magic number of listings, consider doubling it or tripling it and just focusing all your best energies on that. That way, when the market starts to really turn in favor of sellers, because of all the reasons we've talked about, and that's going to happen, unquestionably, that's going to happen, you will be positioned perfectly, not just to sell off the listings that you take, but get more listings because those neighbors are going to see that you sold that house and so on and so on. This is how you really turn the tide. If you're in a market where if your personal business is, if you're, Julie and I always talk about ahead, on track, or behind in terms of real estate production. If you're in any of those categories, you need to be taking more listings right now, or at least learning how to. And of course, that's what we do in our Premier Coaching Program. The link is down below if you want to check that out. All right, Julie, let's get to our points. Unless you have another
okay, so let me just add one thing in the topic of good news and stay away from the doom and gloom headlines. Okay, so this just happened yesterday, I believe. And this ties into the enthusiasm for the market coming back. In a major policy shift aimed at expanding homeownership, the FHFA has announced that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac will now consider positive rent history in mortgage qualification decisions, thanks to the new adoption of the Vantage Score 4.0 credit model. Vantage Score 4.0, unlike the typical FICO model, places greater emphasis on alternative data like rental payments, utility bills, and other consistent monthly obligations. Now, that's not just great news for, the typical we think of first-time buyers, right? And I would ask our listeners, some of you are first-time buyers, you're in your 20s, and everybody you know is a first-time buyer. So maybe that's your center of influence in your client list. But even if you've been in the business for 30 or 40 years, you have an incredible amount of past clients. Probably, how many of them have first-time buyer kids? And this can also apply to somebody that's maybe recently divorced or something like that. Go ahead.
But Julie, you're focusing on that little niche that would benefit most urgently, but you also got to remember that it's a domino system, right? So when first-time home buyers start buying or start selling the homes in that price range, what are those folks doing? They're moving up. And what are the people in the move up prices doing? They're moving up and they're moving up and they're moving up. So when the interest rates fall and there's more movement in the lower end price range, even if that's not your niche, you got to understand that you're going to be benefiting from that. So
100%.
these are all. Yeah, I mean, this is what's happening in the marketplace right now. So don't be suckered into believing that, oh, it's the market and all the things Julie rattled off. It's, you might as well just mentally and emotionally sit on the sidelines and wait for, the conditions to change. You've got to change the conditions inside in anticipation of what is going to be happening in the marketplace. And Julie and I are telling you what our opinions are, but then we're backing it up with facts. Do with it as you may. Because really, in our opinion, we are definitely at the beginning stages of a 25-year housing boom. There's going to be other things too. There's going to be, Julie mentioned the fact that Fannie Freddie is going to stop using FICO as their primary credit scoring thing. Julie, I don't remember the exact number, but didn't they say that that's going to make it so that additional, was it 10 million or 30 million people will qualify for a mortgage? I forget.
I don't remember the exact millions, but it's a lot of millions.
Enormous number of people.
An enormous amount of people. And to your point, it affects up and down the price ranges. So it's all good. And I think this is something that is going to come out in our premier coaching this week to just make sure that all of our agents are up to speed on what those programs are. You also see the traditional FICO, like, Experian, and those guys are adopting and integrating some of this where there's something on Experian where you can boost your credit score by 12 to 15 points simply by giving them access and proving that your utility bills are automatic and on time. And that only takes, I think it takes like 7 days or less to increase a credit score by 15 points.
You've experimented that with us, and you had our credit scores up to like 850.
Yeah, I always play that. I mean, I'm a nerd bag that is kind of interested in the craziness of Reddit at all. But I proved that it worked, though, is why I was doing it.
When we were writing our book, Harris Rules, you had read about that and talked to some people, and they told you this is how you go about doing it. And before you wrote about it in Harris Rules, you went and experimented with it using our credit, and it actually really worked. And it worked really fast, too, which was surprising.
Yeah, you used to have to send in all of your documentation and wait 90 days and then argue with them or whatever. Now it's all digital, it's online, it's easy peasy. So why does that matter? Well, some of you guys have, have prospects who have maybe like a 680 credit score, and this would make them 720 and get them better rates and have them, pull the trigger on that mortgage. So there you are.
And so Fannie and Freddie are definitely going to be coming out of conservatorship. You're going to see, actually, there was another, I didn't tell you about this one, Jules, maybe you read about it. There's Fannie and Freddie also are trying to work on the cost of title insurance. So what's really fascinating is I see Pulte do his thing with FHFA, and he's in charge of Fannie and Freddie now. I see him going through all these sort of institutionalized, normalized expenses that everyone, there's the G fees, and there's this fee, and there's a government thing, and there's a title insurance, and then there's PMI, and all these really insidious bullshit taxes basically that have been added to a real estate transaction, add-ons. And he's going through every one of these line items because he knows, and the Trump administration knows, the affordability is the problem. We don't need house prices to fall. We need payments to fall. So it's not, in addition to interest rates, it's all these other little honey hole carve-outs that the PMI people have had, that the title people have had. Oh, no, we can't change that. Well, why? Oh, it's going to cause the housing market to collapse. No, it's going to cause your paycheck to decrease. That's really what the heart of a lot of this is. I am learning, as I see Pulte do his thing, how much garbage. It's like when you guys go to, when you buy gas in California, we're going out to California in about a month, and you go out to California and you buy gas, and the gas per gallon is so much more expensive than the gas in Texas or the gas, North Carolina. And you wonder, why is it so much more expensive? It's the taxes. You can Google this. If you look at all the added fees that are added to a gallon of gas, in states like California versus other states. Well, mortgages are basically the same thing, but you just pump your gas. You don't think of anything. You don't think, well, what's all this, how much of this is
Because you
actually
have to have gas. That's
right.
why.
How much of this is actually paying for the gas versus all the taxes? The same has happened. So you just become complacent about it. The same has happened with house payments. Well, that's this fee. That's this fee. I guess this is going to cost this much. And now your base payment goes from $1,200 to now $1,800 because of all the Mickey Mouse. And that's what we're going to see get eviscerated as a result of what we know is going to be a new housing plan that Trump comes out with, whether it's called the new golden era for housing, whether it's called make housing great again, where our guess is good as yours. So yeah, there we go. All right, Julie, let's get to the fun stuff.
Okay, well, before we get to the super fun stuff, I do have to say something about the whole hill country flooding tragedy that, some of our coaching clients are boots on the ground. They're helping with rescue and recovery. Fortunately, as far as I know, none of them personally have been affected. Two of Zoe's classmates were in a camp near Camp Mystic and were rescued. I mean, we have to say something about that. And I want you to also point them to the newsletter because I've included different ways that you can help. So my theme here is none of us could control that. It was a tragedy. It happened. What can you control, right? So you can support flood affected Texans and their pets. I have some pet rescue stuff in there so that you can control what matters most. Be with your loved ones, volunteer, donate, rally behind the rescue and recovery efforts however you can. Give blood. We gave blood about a month ago ourselves. So if you're feeling, I felt very kind of a lot of feelings like out of control and how could this have happened and the devastation and all of that. And then a few days later, I'm like, all right, well, what can we do? How can we contribute? How can you control what you can control? So I have things like Austin Disaster Relief, Community Foundation for Kerr County Flood Relief. I researched all of these. Everything in the newsletter has been vetted and is a real legit organization that does what they say they're going to do. So I guess, we could talk about that, but that's what it comes down to. And ultimately, we'll talk about a couple of stories. So that's the first one. We had to honor that and look at the newsletter for how to contribute. The second thing is what some people have done. I'm going to turn the corner and make it positive here. Okay. So,
well, Julie, because I can see as you talk about it, I know viewers on YouTube are probably noticing this too. You are still a little emotionally attached to it. And I'm trying to save you. I'm trying to say, well, it's because Zoe's about to go to camp and you're thinking about Zoe at camp. That's why you're thinking about it.
Yes.
So do yourself a favor, sister, and move off this topic.
I know I am, but I'm also helping all of our listeners process some of this too. So point number 2, that was point number 1. We have to talk about that. Point number 2 is some really good stories with a theme of, coaching moment, taking action. Okay, so number 2, Coast Guard Scott Ruskin and his team saved 165 lives. Perhaps the most dramatic rescue effort. There's a guy named Petty Officer Scott Ruskin, who's only 26 years old. He's a Coast Guard rescue swimmer. That's what he does. Okay, that's what he was trained to do. And in addition to this was his first ever mission. He was deployed to Camp Mystic near the Guadalupe River amid flash floods, 26 feet in 25 minutes. Over 200 campers were stranded, but he and his team saved 165 after an 8-hour flight it took to get him there. And he's stationed at Corpus Christi. So I think that was an amazing story. And he would go find people and then he would signal to helicopter units and then they would pull people out of the water. So that's Julie, pretty amazing.
You told me that they found some girls that were like Zoe's age that were how many feet up in a tree and had been there for like
25
days?
feet up in the tree, because think of how much that water rose. And they grabbed onto the tree and they waited for 4 or 5 hours. This is the type of rescue that this guy did. And I heard an interview with him. And, everybody's making him out to be a hero. And certainly he is. But he's like, you know what? I'm a trained rescue swimmer. This is what I do. So I thought that was very commendable. And in a related short story, number 3, there was a dog they found whose name was actually Superman. Okay. Debris-ridden survivor, symbol of hope. Among the many animals rescued was Superman, a dog who was found perched on flood debris. He was saved, treated, and has now been reunited with his family, becoming a symbol of hope and resilience. So this is how I'm trying to turn the tide here. Okay.
So you guys are hopefully feeling a little bit better. Julie started a little bit of a doom and gloom thing, but she's trying to show you.
I can't hover there for long.
Right. She's trying to show you, and I know your guys are feeling it too, human resiliency and how ultimately we are always, that's the amazing thing about Americans in particular. under times of crisis, people sort, not for very long, unfortunately, in some markets, in some parts of the country, but we do seem to instantly move aside from our
Rally.
political differences and all these other things that the major mainstream media wants us to believe are so divisive in the country. And we do focus on what matters most. It's almost like every single one of us in the United States truly do feel like we're Americans. And it sometimes takes some horribleness like this tragedy to remind all of us of
Yeah.
that. So, and hopefully you're feeling like that as well. And Julie, I love this next one. Let me tee this up for you. Okay.
Sure.
So
You got
when
it.
Julie and I sold real estate, we were, and we then had, obviously went into coaching full time, but we had a program called Buy or Sell with Me, Adopt a Pet for Free. Miss Julie here thought of this. And what we did is we were volunteering and donating money prior to this program to the Humane Society. Julie and I had, before we had a daughter, we had a whole bunch of pets. So we like, I don't even want to remember how many. So moral of the story is that we did this Buy or Sell with Me, Adopt a Pet for free. And we would cover the cost of the adoption fees. The person still had to qualify to adopt the dog or the cat and the whole thing, go through the process, but we would cover the cost. It wasn't very much. And so that was something that we would actually take listings, and we would have specifically people would refer us to other folks who are animal lovers just because of that. We never overtly marketed Buy or Sell with Me, Adopt a Pet for free. It never became a big USP for doing business with Tim and Julie Harris, but it became a very powerful driver for people to send us referrals because they knew we were like them when we had a dog and all the rest of it. So just for what it's worth, Julie's enhanced this idea, and I think you guys are going to love this one. Go ahead.
Yes. So what it did is it expanded our center of influence to pet lovers. It was just like another circle of people that were enthusiastic and transacted with us. Okay. So point number 4 in the newsletter: create your own Buy or Sell with Me, Adopt a Pet for free. We have partnered with the Asher House. They're in Oregon to promote pet adoptions and support their incredible sanctuary for dogs in need. Now, in the newsletter, I included a YouTube link so you can understand what they do. It's a huge sanctuary in Oregon. I don't know how many hundreds of acres, and they've expanded from, I think they originally had 8 dogs, and now they've got 400 or 500. They've got donkeys. They've got those crazy pigs that people adopt, and then they get to be 300 pounds, and then they end up rescuing them.
I think those are just called pigs.
Pigs. Yeah, probably just
I
pigs.
don't think it's a special breed of pig. I think.
Pot-bellied pigs. That's what they are. Okay.
Oh, you mean, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So, but anyway, there's a
I
video touring his organization.
Pot-bellied pigs, I think, are technically, believe it or not, I don't know if you know this, but Vietnamese pigs. I'm going to tell you guys a fun pig fact. Okay. So we used to live in Texas. We didn't have pigs, but there were wild pigs. And some of these wild pigs, we catch them on our security cameras occasionally, were bigger than Julie. And matter of fact, some of these wild pigs, if you guys are in Texas, you'll know what I'm talking about. They are absolutely the scariest, most horrible looking, crazy ass looking.
They're called
They have
javelinas
huge
there.
tusks. They all have teeth coming out sometimes. They have freaking mohawks, and they're massive. The biggest one I ever saw was probably, I don't know, it was hundreds of pounds. So, welcome to Texas. Now, what happened is you would have, well, where do those things come from? Where are all these wild pigs coming from? Now, this is what's really fascinating. So when a normal pig from Bob's Barnyard escapes, as they're apt to do, they'll start out by looking like a pig, like you can visualize it. No hair, no tusks,
Pink.
no attitude, pink. I mean, however you visualize a normal pig to look. And for some incredible reason, within a very short period of time, when those pigs, most of them will, hook up with a big pack of wild pigs, those let's call them normal looking pigs, all of a sudden start looking like the wild pigs. In other words, there's something, and you're gonna have to hit me with those fancy words, there's something inside the wild or the normal pig's genes that when in a different environment, they become pig savages. Okay.
In like no time. Didn't it take like 2 months or less or something?
It was like less than a year. It was like 6 months.
Yeah.
So this is something that's been documented. I have always found that to be insanely interesting that you can take like a Wilbur looking pig, and you could throw him with some freaking biker looking pigs. And all of a sudden he's going to instantly become a badass himself. Don't you guys think that's fascinating? So Julie, what's that term
epigenetics
called?
where something flicks on and that's activated and then grow up like that crazy spotted wild pig fur, and they get spiky, and
Yep.
I think they get bigger and all of these things.
They do.
So
they physically get larger. They change to their environment. But okay, well, how does this relate to coaching? Well, think about this. Well,
Help
you'll
me.
like this, Julie. The way this relates to coaching is because you are directly controlled by your environment. Awesome.
Aha.
Yeah. So you're like most of you are like Wilbur the pig, and you're just kind of comfortable in your own little barnyard until you one day find out that the farmer is going to send you to slaughter, and you decide to escape, and then you decide to become the truest version of yourself. You start discovering that indeed you have tusks that could be, grown, and you could be twice or 10 times the size you normally are, and you can live. You guys get the point here. I'm trying to sort of.
Become the savage in real estate.
Yeah. Well, all of us have that within us, but we keep
I do
ourselves.
think that's true.
It totally is true. We keep ourselves in these little environments, in these little pen yards, are surrounded by the same complacent pigs in our entire lives, and we never actually expose ourselves to what's possible amongst all of us. So if you allow yourself, start with mentally, to escape from the environment that you're in, you too will discover that you have some, I would say latent, but I will say not necessarily latent. I will say
Suppressed, maybe.
innate,
Mm.
that's the word, innate skills, talents, and possibilities that you probably don't even aren't even aware are there until you are changing your environment, the people you hang out with. So there's my pig tie-in.
Excellent tie-in. That
You're
was
welcome.
impressive.
Yeah, thank you.
I like that. That's good. Well, so let me just stay on this for a second. The buy or sell with me, adopt a pet for free, or maybe adopt a pig for free. I don't know. The thing that we did with Asher House in the newsletter outline is the flyer that you can use. You can just use that PDF and partner with them. Now, Asher House is in Oregon, so you may or may not want to travel there or drive there, send your clients there. You can certainly mimic this promotion with your
Well,
own ASPCA or something like that.
they do have partnerships with people that will help to underground railroad the dog
Transport.
or the cat or the pet to wherever
Yes.
it's supposed to go. There
Yeah,
are,
I think
yeah,
they have a no-fly policy, but you'd have to look on their information. And it's a great place for people to visit. It's an amazing place. And to your pig story, you take a pig that looks like normal farm pig and put it in a different situation. These are rescue dogs, and I've seen him turn a dog around in like 20 minutes, where the owner or the rescue said the dog was just completely insane, bonkers, barking, just bad attitude, the whole thing. He takes him, spends like 10 minutes with him, getting his trust, puts him in the pack. I'm oversimplifying, but puts him in the pack. And it's like the happiest dog ever because it's around other
environment.
dogs that are teaching it how to be a good dog because they've all been trained that way.
Jules, let's so that because we went past that too far, because you're saying Astor House, Oregon, people are immediately tuning out because they're in Ohio. So,
Right.
and let's just describe how that actually works as far as transpo. So when Julie and I used to volunteer a lot when we lived in the western part of the United States, we to for what was
French
it?
Bulldog Rescue Network.
Yeah, right. French Bulldog Rescue Network. And so what we would do is so we wouldn't foster the dogs. We would go and rescue the dog. So what would happen is someone would call and they say, I've got a dog. Maybe it was occasionally humane societies who had a French Bulldog, or usually it was people that couldn't afford them anymore. Or the dogs had health problems or
Mhm.
just some such thing, life changes, whatever. So
Yeah.
they would call French Bulldog Rescue. French Bulldog Rescue then would take all their information, get all the legal paperwork out of the way, and then they would call and Julie and I and other people that were doing the transpo, and then we would drive out to wherever they were. We did this in California, we did this in Arizona, we did this in Nevada, and we
Texas.
would Texas, and we would drive out and we would go to the person's house and we would they would relinquish the pets to us, and then we would transpo them to the next person in the
It
the
was like a
transpo.
relay,
It was
basically.
a relay, right? And so we would, that's exactly as I just described it. That's what we were doing, and we would, and then the animals then would go to usually that maybe was one more leg in their relay. So if it's starting in Oregon, there could be somebody that's relaying it to here,
Hmm.
and then it ends up
It
basically
can be
where,
worked out, is the point. Yep.
right? I mean, we had a dog named Biggie, who was, if you guys don't know French Bulldogs, the average French Bulldog is 28 pounds. We rescued one. We rescued one. His name was Biggie, and he was 53 pounds, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, so but here's the funny part. He was put up for adoption by the sweetest, nicest, most loving dog mom, but she couldn't afford him, and she was in an apartment in LA. So we drove all the way out to LA, and we rescued this $49 or 50-pound French bulldog, and he didn't speak. The dog did not understand any English, so the dog only understood Spanish, and the gal had told Julie that if you want him to come to eat dinner, you have to say, what was it?
Frijoles negros.
Which is black beans and rice.
Black
So
beans.
she had been feeding this thing she didn't have a lot of money. She wasn't buying him dog food. She was feeding him black beans and rice since he was a baby.
And
And
he'd
he
come
was
barreling for his black beans and rice.
And so the first time Julie said it, and we had two little French bulldogs at the time that were normal size, not jumbos. I remember the first time she said it, this guy came running at us so hard we had to get out of the way, otherwise he would plow us down like a running rhino.
Like
So
a
anyway,
Frenchy rhino. Yeah.
right. So that guy then got Julie and I took him to his foster. The foster got the weight off, which was hilarious.
Mhm.
And then he ended up living in San Francisco. He had a little bit of a breathing problem, so he got adopted by someone in San Francisco where it was always never that hot out. But the
Mhm.
funny part was is the guy who adopted him was living or no working in a building where he had to walk up like 3 flights of stairs.
Keep that weight off him.
And Biggie, assuming he kept that name, was going to have to walk those 3 flights of stairs, at least twice a day, maybe
Mhm.
more with all the walks he would go on during the day. And so Biggie basically was forced to keep the weight off of him. So the miracle of doing these humane society and pet rescue things, yeah, is that they always find the right owners. And there's so many different stories like that we could tell you. They're just miraculous. So yes,
That's
get
right.
involved in the Asher House thing. Go to their, Julie watches their stuff on social. Communicate with them, find out how you can participate. If you're already on the West Coast, maybe do some of the things we're talking about. We weren't selling real estate at the time, but had we been selling real estate at the time, what a killer way for us to have expanded our, centers of influence and past clients. Jules?
That's right. And obviously, we're a big fan of the Asher House. So if you can support them, then you've got the information in the newsletter to do so. Now, if I was an agent around Kerrville or I was in Hill Country, because there were 5 counties affected by that, their rescue organizations for pets are full. Okay. I see posts all the time. They've got like hundreds of dogs that have been rescued that are just waiting to reunite with their owners. If I was an agent there, I would find those. There's posters of these pictures like find my owners and where is that pet located. I'd put that on my website. I would maybe have a flyer at my next open house. I would contribute in some way. So there's lots of things that you can do here. Are you ready for the next point?
Yeah, we need to move
Okay.
along because we have an appointment after this.
Yes.
Okay, so the next appointment, by the way, if you guys want the notes, Julie talked about the newsletter, just go to harrisrealestatedaily.com. That is our daily newsletter. And again, this is Friday, so we talk about really whatever we want to talk about. It's less structured and less focused on real estate training.
Mhm.
And there's literally thousands and thousands of past podcasts that are focused on that if you just want to listen to that. But in the meantime, Julie, get back. And again, Harris Real Estate Daily is our daily newsletter. You subscribe, you get all of our notes for free. Subscribing obviously is free, so there's no excuse for you not to do it. Just go to harrisrealestatedaily.com or just click the link below. All right, Julie, point number 5. You've called this one Amazon Prime Day Real Estate Agent Edition. What's this all about?
It's Friday and going into the weekend. Amazon used to have just Amazon Day where they give all these discounts. Now they've expanded it to either 4 or 6 days, something like that. It's a lot more going into this weekend. And you've got lots of things. They have it right there on Amazon Real Estate Edition. So you guys can get 15 to 20% discounts on, brochure boxes, signs, open house flags, things that you need for staging, lock boxes, shoe covers. We recommend that you use shoe covers in your listing, in your open houses. So if you're looking to restock, even directional signs, they've got all kinds of cool stuff. So I'm just reminding you guys that are in real estate to check it out. And there's even a link to that also in the newsletter. So that's just a quick little reminder.
You know what you just gave me the idea of?
What's that?
I'm going to ask our staff to look into creating an Amazon store where we can basically have a place that's where we've already, curated whatever we think are the best of the products that Amazon sells that would be relevant for real estate agents. And we'll put it on a Tim and Julie store. So I just put that on my list. Yeah. Well, maybe it's a good idea. Maybe it's not. We'll have to
find
see.
out.
Yeah. So thanks for the inspiration. All right. So next idea, Julie, is point number 6, which is pro-social orcas. Yes, really. Okay. Now we're going back into the
completely
wacko.
different than anything we've talked about, just to keep it fun Friday.
Should we talk about the shark thing we watched last night?
I think this will maybe roll into that. Possibly.
Well, let me just tee him up. I think it was on maybe Netflix, but it may have been on Amazon Prime. Like a gal in Hawaii named Ocean. Do you remember her last name?
I looked it up this morning and now I can't remember it again, but it's easy to find on Google.
Yeah. Well,
last name.
I thought that was beautiful, actually. I thought so whatever it was on, we're giving you guys some viewing suggestions here, but that's all the information we have. But her first name is Ocean. When you're doing that, I'll Google it. So go ahead.
Okay. Well, so she's a marine biologist who actually, honest to God, swims with sharks all the time, not in the cage, but out of the cage. And first of all, watching that was just stunning footage of, that anybody can do that. But it's a very interesting story.
Actually,
So,
Julie, she's not a marine biologist, and
oh,
that's the reason that the
well,
marine
ChatGPT told
biologist.
me she was, but
Yeah,
maybe
no,
previous
she
life.
isn't. She's not, and that's the reason that the people don't like the fact. A lot
Oh,
of the marine biologist types don't like the fact that she is doing what she's doing, and she's expanding the conversation to talk about sharks in a lot more ways than any marine biologists have in recent years. And really, her mission is to make it so people aren't afraid of sharks as much as they have been in the past. But I'm going to tell you, after watching that movie, I'm more afraid of sharks than I've ever been, and I have less motivation to want to swim with any damn sharks. So I'm just putting it
well,
out
I'm
there.
glad somebody is into that. That's
Yeah.
good.
So
And mostly in Hawaii, I think.
I'll find this gal's name.
Yeah.
You can go to your point.
Okay. Speaking of marine life, point number 6, pro-social orcas. Researchers have documented 34 different global cases of killer whales offering prey to humans, suggesting the behavior may be a form of interspecies social exploration or relationship building. In most incidents, orcas waited for human reactions before retrieving or abandoning the offered prey, which included fish, birds, even seaweed, pointing to a deliberate and curious engagement. The study, published by the Journal of Comparative Psychology, highlights this behavior as part of killer whales' advanced cognition and social culture, placing them amongst the few wild predators to show such pro-social tendency towards humans. So I thought that was an interesting twist. Did you find it?
Ocean Ramsey.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah,
Her name
her
is
name's
actually
Ocean
Ocean.
Ocean Ramsey. So watch the video or watch the Netflix or whatever it is on this, because like Julie said, it was really amazing. I have to say the best part, a little spoiler alert, was at the very end. And you weren't watching this, Julie. I think you were
Hmm.
doing something for Zoe. But at the very end, there was a scene where there was a whale, a dead whale, that all the hammerheads and all the other sharks were feeding on. And then
Mm-hmm.
she was in the water. They were doing their little video thing and they're taking all these pictures. I know, like not for me, right? And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden, she said, and her husband, boyfriend were down, her husband now, Juan, I think is his name. All of a sudden, they could hear and, clicking, click, click,
Mm.
click, click. And so what
Uh-huh.
was happening was that, and all the sharks, and these are sharks that are massive sons of bitches, guys. These are like hammerheads and all these things that are swimming off the Hawaii coast were like, 14 feet long. And all of a sudden, and this was this perfect feeding situation. They're at the trough feeding on a dead whale, all of them just split. They said they heard this
Huh.
clicking, and all of a sudden, all these sharks, and there were dozens of them, just got the hell out. You couldn't even see them. They're like panning, what the heck's going on? But they heard this clicking, and then all of a sudden, this is what happened. All of a sudden, they look down and they pan their camera down, and they see the freakiest, scariest ass looking thing coming out of the deepest, darkest place. I mean, you see this thing
What
starting
was
to
it?
form. A great white shark.
Oh, so the other sharks are afraid of the
The
great
great
white.
white shark. And get this,
They
Julie.
warned each other.
They videotaped it. The great white shark fed on
Oh.
the thing and they videotaped it. And it was the largest great white shark that was ever caught on camera. And the scientists who then looked at the footage, ascertained that that shark was at least 50 years old. But there's
Oh my
video
gosh.
that there's in this movie and pictures. She's essentially like petting this thing and hanging out with it. And she's tiny compared to this thing. And it almost looks like a movie poster for the movie Jaws. You know what I'm saying? Where
So the
Jaws,
other sharks split and she hung around to communicate with this giant great
well,
white.
just hang out and get some pictures and get the hell out of the water would be my guess. But
Wow.
anyway, so that's what happened. But I thought when you heard this clicking, I thought there were going to be orcas, to your point,
Yeah.
and the killer whales, because that would be what sharks would naturally be afraid of. But no, sharks are afraid of the big dude that swims at the very, very bottom, who's massive. And I think that was fascinating. I didn't know that.
Also, why I never go out more than about 10 feet in, in the ocean. But good to know that somebody's braver than I. But
And it's the reason I
it's
watch you.
fascinating, though.
The reason I watch you wade around in 10 feet of water from the beach.
Exactly, right? Yes. People who grow up in the ocean, different than people who grow up on land.
Yeah, we're from Ohio. There was no ocean.
It's best on the TV at the end of the day.
There was barely any fresh seafood in Ohio.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay. Maybe a crawfish out of the river. All right.
Yeah.
So the next one is a short one. I just thought this was interesting. You know those candies called Smarties, those little discs that are in the tube? Well, a fun fact for your next trivia night, the classic Smarties candy was originally produced using repurposed pellet machines that made gunpowder charges in World War II. That's how Smarties happened. Isn't that crazy? After the war, Edward D bought one of the machines and converted it to produce candy tablets, and the iconic Smarties were born in 1949. There you are. That was a quick one.
That's how you're ending your story?
Divergence. No, that's it. I have maybe one more. Number 8 is a purr, as in cats, perfect pick-me-up. There's a quirky but soothing tool that's been winning smiles. It's called Purrly.com, Purrli.com. It plays customizable cat purrs, whether you want a playful trill or a soft, sleepy rumble to calm yourself, or even when your cat gets noisy. Users report feeling noticeably calmer within just 5 minutes of listening. When I read this, I was thinking, like, next time you have a buyer or seller freaking out, just play them some cat purrs and see if you can talk them off the ledge.
You know,
right?
literally you talking about cats right now makes me want to sneeze.
I know, right? One foster mom even shared that 3 orphaned kittens fell asleep while listening, purring right along with the sound, with no mama cat required. And there's real science behind it. Cats purr in the 20 to 150 hertz range, frequencies that have been shown to reduce stress, improve sleep, and even promote healing. So try it now. From playful chirps, deep contentment, or alert that I want more pets purrs. There's lots of different customizable purrs. So if you're ever, feeling stressful, maybe you go to Purrly.com for 5 minutes and all is chill.
Yeah, no, I'm not doing that. All right, so I'm like,
You don't like cats.
no, I don't know. Well, you and I had 4 cats at one time, and that pretty much just burned me out on
You are at
cats for
cat
life.
capacity.
Exactly. I'm mentally and emotionally, I have emotional scars
Cat
from all
box
those
trauma.
cats. Exactly. What is it called?
Post-cat
PTSD.
box trauma.
Right. Well, so listen, guys, that is our Friday podcast. All the notes, we didn't get to all of Julie's notes. She's got a lot of great links for some of the things we talked about at the end of the right here. So make sure you guys get the notes. Go to harrisrealestatedaily.com. Hey, this is our Friday show. We blow off a little steam.
We warned you.
We warned you. We try to have a little bit of fun. If you guys have any ideas for us for topics you want us to focus on, in past podcasts, on Friday, we talked about health stuff. We talked about HRT, testosterone, HRT for women. We've talked about all kinds of different things, money stuff, things that aren't necessarily right in the, between the rails of normal real estate training. So listen to the past shows. We really sincerely appreciate the fact that every single month between YouTube and between audio only podcasts, we literally have tens of thousands of you guys listen. The podcast is just an audio only. We'll have close to 1 million downloads this year. On video, it'll probably have another, I don't even know how many. I mean, it's like 2 or 3 million of you guys are tuning into us every single year, which is incredible considering, the fact that there's less than 1.5 million agents and you look at to see how many people are listening to us on a regular basis. It is really, truly our honor. It's the thing I say, Julie and I talk about, like, what's the thing that well, personally, I really like my elite coaching calls. I'll say I'm getting a lot out of that, as I hoped I would. Very cathartic. And I return to my roots as a real estate coach. But that aside, this podcast really is the thing that drives us to, I think, always be improving our game, because you guys are such judgmental SOBs sometimes. And if we say something that you don't agree with, like, oh my gosh, I'm not even going to say the trigger words, but trust me, I know what the trigger words are. We'll start getting comments. I remember the first time Julie and I brought up semi-glutide on the podcast, we got filleted on the from all these comments of people that
Somebody's going to say Tim and Julie are promoting that you should swim with sharks after this one.
Totally. That's what I'm saying. So listen, for those of you guys who know us, who have been part of our lives, and we've been part of yours for years, we sincerely appreciate that we're all on this journey together. Do please like and subscribe to the podcast. If you're on iTunes, definitely subscribe and download every single day. Share the podcast with other folks. Help us be in alignment with our highest and truest purpose, which is being of service to all of you. Now, remember, this is Friday, so you keep your minds in the right direction of your highest and truest purpose in your business life, which is being of service to your buyers and your sellers. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, and we'll talk with you on the show on Monday or anytime, because you can listen to all of our replays. Have a great day.